For today's tutorial, we are going to be drawing figure 1.10 that you guys have already done. It's a little bit of review as far as drawing this goes, but what we're going to add is we're then going to dimension it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my SketchUp window, and I'm going to choose woodworking inches. You can choose whatever template that you prefer. And as far as units go, if you use centimeters, that's fine. Inches, feet, meters, millimeters, whatever you prefer is fine. You just want to make sure that it's to scale, meaning this object, 1.10, is actually 14 from here to here. So whatever unit I've chosen, whether that's inches or feet or centimeters, should be 14 also, so that our scale stays intact. Alright, so I've got my SketchUp screen up here now, and I printed off this page and made some marks on it showing how big that object is. There's different dimensions and things along those lines. And so you'll see me refer back to this, but I also have the page in front of me that will kind of help me out as we go. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to draw this object in 3 different pieces. And again, you can do it however works for you. The base, so when I say the base, I'm looking at kind of this object extending all the way back, is 14 by 8. And so I will just go 14, 8 and hit enter. And that gets push-pulled up 2. And that's kind of this base right here. We've got to add some more stuff to it, but we'll come back and do that. This is just going to help us kind of get the shape of things here. And I'm going to group that so that those lines are locked together. And then I'm going to draw my first tab, and by tab I mean there's 2 of these objects right here. So I'm going to draw one of these. From this side to this side, it is 6. And from that top of the base, okay, right there, to the top of my arc is 7. So 6 by 7. So I'm going to go over here and hit R for rectangle. Start it on that corner, drag it out, and I'm going to kind of bring it up so that I know which way I want to go. And I want to hit 7, 6. And that is the beginning of that tab. And I'm going to push-pull that 2. And there's where I get the 2 from. So I hit P for push-pull, hit 2 and enter. And I'm also going to group this together. And I may need to go back in and change some of the stuff. But now eventually what I'll do is I'll make a copy of this, and that will go over here. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to go back and work on my base some more. So the first thing I'm going to worry about is this arc, the big arc for now. And the big arc, the center line is right, the center point, excuse me, is right there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 back, and 4 over, which makes sense because our base is 8 wide, so it's just half of that. So now I hit T for tape measure, and I'm going to bring a guideline in right to the middle, so I'm hovering over the midpoint, and that was 4. And then I'm going to make another one, 4, enter, and that gives me my center point. And you guys have done some experimenting with your arc tools and things like that. I think this is the one that you've used the most, probably because that's the default up on your top menu. The one I'm going to use today, though, is this one here, where you actually start in the center. Okay, so instead of starting out here and going to this, I start in the center, just like a compass works. And I go over here, find the intersection, I click again, so I've clicked twice now, clicked on the center, clicked on the starting point, and I'm dragging that around. And so I'm going to use that one, and then I'm going to hit P for push-pull, and I'm going to pull these tabs down. Okay, so there is my arc completed now, and I'm going to hit E for erase. Get rid of those guidelines, and then we're going to worry about this oval here. So the center line this way is obviously the same. 1, 2, 3, 4 in, right in the middle of that base. But then the center point, this one is a little different. 1, 2, just 3 in, and then 1, 2, 3 more. So I hit T for guideline, for the tape measure, right? And I go 4, enter. And now I lost this straight line up here. So all I'm going to do is start back there, and I'm going to bring a new straight line up all the way to the end so that I have something to reference to go back from. So now I click on that one I just made, and now I'm going to hit 3, enter. And I go to the same one, and 3, enter again. So those are the center points for these two circles. There's a couple ways you can do this. Doesn't matter to me which one you choose. I can go to this, and I can draw my circle this way, and those circles are 2 wide. The diameter is 2, but it wants me to put radius in SketchUp, so I hit 1, enter, 1, enter. I can do it that way, and then draw my line from here to here, like that, and complete it. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, kind of starting with our guideline, is to make the straight lines first. And so I would go 1 this way, 1 this way, and then I could use my arc tool again. So just like a compass, I clicked on the center. Now I click on the starting point. Now I take it around to the ending point. So 3 clicks for those arcs. 1, 2, 3. And now I would again, same process, go back in and connect it with the straight lines. So that's another way to do it. You can do it either way you want. I'm going to get rid of my guidelines, so I hit E for eraser. And now I've got that. I'm going to push-pull that, get it out of the way. And I believe that our base is now complete. Go back here and reference the oval hole is out. The circle is there. Looking exactly how it's supposed to look, in my opinion. There's a good way to kind of reference it and see that everything's good. Okay, so now I'm going to go back in and edit this thing. This center point is obviously the center point for this circle, but it's also, this time, the center point for this arc. So that's going to be an easy one to find. It's 1, 2, 3 down, or 4 up, either way, and it's in the center of this. So I'm going to double click this to edit it. I'm going to hit T so that I can get my tape measure tool and put in some guidelines. So I got that one right in the center by using the midpoint. And I'm going to go from the top down. So I click there, and then I'm going to type 3 and enter. And that's going to be my center point for the circle and the arc. I'll start with the arc. You can start wherever you want. Clicked once in the center, twice on the starting point, and a 3rd time on the end point. And then let's do our hole. Okay, so I grab my circle tool, and that is obviously a diameter of 2. So I'm going to click in the center. SketchUp wants radius, so I'll cut that in half and just type 1. First thing I'm going to do is push-pull the hole all the way out. So I reference the back of my tab, and I can see that that is now clear. And then I'll do the same thing there. And I can just double click and get rid of that one because it already knows how I want to do that. And so now all I really have to add here is this little radius, and this is called the fillet radius. Okay, and I'm going to show you how I choose to do that. There's a lot of ways to do it. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to use my guide tool. I'm going to come out here, 1, enter. And again, I can see that it's just 1, the radius there. And I'm going to do the same thing from the base. I'm going to make sure I get it going up. So it's blue there. 1, enter. And my arc tools sometimes have a really hard time referencing if I don't actually have a square there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit R for rectangle. I'm going to go there to there and make it an actual surface for right now. Then I'm going to go back and get my same arc tool. I'm going to click on the center, like a compass. Click on the starting point. Bring it out to the ending point. I've got my arc there. And now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the other stuff. And then I'm going to push-pull this back to the back of the tab. And then I can kind of clean this up. There we go. And so now this one is complete. And I click out of my group to close it. And then I'm just going to click on it. I'm going to hit M for move. A little easier back here to move. If I grab right on that corner, start dragging it, and right now I'm moving it, but now that I'm going to tap Control, it toggles over, and now I'm making a copy of it. And so now I have my 2 copies. If you wanted to print it like this, that would be okay, but really this line should not be there because this is all one surface. But I can't do that because everything's grouped. So now all I do is I pick one, hold down Shift, and I pick all the other parts. There's 3 of them. And I right click, explode, make it all combine together. Grab eraser, so I hit E. Now I can get rid of these lines so that everything looks like it's supposed to. One thing I always like to do is I highlight the whole thing, right click it, and I want to make sure everything knows that it's supposed to be touching. So I want to intersect faces with my whole selection. And that little message screen was just telling me that I already did a good job. SketchUp needs these lines in there, but we don't really need them. We want those curves to be perfectly in there. So what we can do is we can click on that and then right click and hide it. Right click, hide it. Right click, hide it. A faster way to do that is to grab your eraser tool, and right now it actually would erase, and that's going to cause me big problems. But if I hold down Shift while I'm doing that, it actually turns the eraser tool into a hide tool. So I'm holding down Shift, and instead of erasing those, it's actually just hiding all those. And so all these curves where I want it to just flow in seamlessly, I'm holding down Shift and I'm smoothing all that out. Anywhere where I see those. And these actually here can be erased. So I've let go of Shift and I want those actually erased so that those become one surface. And there, our object is complete. And obviously we know that this is only the beginning. We need to add dimensions. So I'm going to go up to Save As, and you'll save yours to the H drive and everything like that. I save mine to my Dropbox so that I can use things and access them at home. And I'm going to save it to Industrial Design, and I'm going to call this, Figure 1.10. So now my drawing is saved, and at this point now I can go up to File and send that to Layout. That's what you guys will do as well, and then we're actually going to add our dimensions in Layout. I'm going to pause the video for just a second while Layout opens. So we're back here, and this is the first prompting that pops up. When I send that to Layout, we obviously want to choose our paper, and as I've talked to you guys about several times, what's really important is that first word. We don't want tabloid, we don't want A4, A3, we want letter. For this particular drawing, I think it's going to work better in landscape, so I want the blank landscape. I click right there. And now we can kind of begin. First thing we want to do is we're going to get one view set up, then we're going to make copies of it. So in this one view, I've clicked on it once, but I'm just going to right click it and unclick perspective. And that obviously changes it quite a bit. That's all right. Click off of it. I zoomed in. And now I'm going to slide it down to get it to the bottom left where our front view goes. And this is going to sound familiar to you guys from all of our sketching that we did, or hopefully it does. So I'm just messing with the size right now. I'm holding down Control, and I'm seeing if everything's going to fit in there the way that I want it to. That's pretty good that way. How does it look this way? A little bit big that way. So I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to shrink it down from left to right just a little. Should be all right there. Okay. So now, click off of it, right click on it. Just like we did the other day, we're going to go to Standard Views, and in this bottom left, that's where our front view goes. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Get it kind of filling the window. And so now we have our front view done. Click on it once, hold down Control, and I'm going to shift it up, and this will become the top view. So I have that up there, right click on it. Excuse me. Standard Views, and we just go over to top. And because I got this one all set, size-wise, zoomed in, took perspective off, after I have one all set, as I make copies of them, they'll stay exactly the same size, and that's really key. We want to stick with that. So I'm going back to the original, which is the front view, holding down Control, my little plus sign pops up, and I'm sliding over to create my right side view. Standard Views, and right side. So now my perspective is gone, so I have very clear lines of the front, top, and then right side views. And here's where we're going to start playing with some dimension stuff. So I'm going to click up here on my dimension tool. Before I start doing any dimensions though, I'm going to go over here to my tray, my default tray, and if your tray is not showing, all you have to do is go up to View, hover over Toolbars. Oh, that's not right. Where is it? Window. If your tray is not there, you'll have an option here that will say, show tray. Obviously mine's already showing, so my option says hide tray. We want to go to dimensioning style. And you can change all sorts of stuff. The big thing for me though is in this drawing, I don't want fractions. Maybe you guys do and maybe certain drawings will. I want decimal and I don't need it to be that precise. That's going to go, every dimension goes down to 6 places. For this drawing, I'm just going to go one place because I'm pretty accurate with this and I feel confident about that. So now my dimensions are all set and we're going to start dimensioning. So here we're going to talk about some of the rules of dimensioning. First rule is you only need to put in enough dimensions that someone could build this. That's kind of the overall theme of this. I would say second rule is you never want to put in too many dimensions. So to me, the first dimension that I need to know is where this arc starts and ends. Or excuse me, I guess this arc, where the center point would be in terms of starting that. So I'm going to go right over here, click there, and now I go to the back and I get right on that point. Sometimes you got to get real close. And I clicked on both of those and now I can slide it out. So that's telling me where the start of the arc was. Perfect. And the reason that it goes here is that it kind of references down to this model. And you can choose which views you want to do things in. I try to keep my dimensions in between instead of going on the outside. And so the overall dimensions of this, the width of this, is 8. I want to reference these top points instead of the bottom. Slide that up. And the reason I'm going a little bit higher with that is because I'm going to add some stuff. And I'm going to add and say that this is 2. So my larger dimension is outside of my smaller dimensions. And by hovering, it can kind of reference that it's in the same line as that. And you may say to yourself, well, Mr. Grady, don't you have to tell me what this gap is in between there? No, because I've actually given that already to you. The total is 8. I've told you this is 2 and this is 2. So 8 minus 2 is 6, minus 2 more is 4. So obviously what's left in between is 4. So that is all the dimensions for that one. We haven't said how thick this base is down here. So I'm going to add that. And I pull it out so that it can reference both views, front and right side. We have not said how wide these tabs are. And so maybe what we want to do is go to the arrow tool, select this, and I want to pull it down a little bit further. I don't know why that changed. So we'll just delete that and put it back in. There we go. And I'm pulling that down a little bit further so that I can get this tab. There we go. And I pull that down so that the shorter dimension is inside of the bigger dimension. And now I know how wide that tab is. This is an interesting one because we have this little fillet, so it's hard to tell us where this hole is in terms of the center point of this. So there's my center. All right, so I'm going to kind of use that as a reference. I might have to zoom in some. Drag it right over, and I want to be right there. And I hit escape there because what I actually want to do is go over here to this because they share the same center point. And so I'm going to click there, and I know that this right here is where I want to be. So I'm hovering, just leaving it there. I haven't clicked, and then I'm going to slide it back in, and so that it's referencing that. Okay, and I want it to be 4. And now I'm going to pull that all the way out so that it matches right with where that 2 is, so that those are in line with each other. And that's telling me where the center of this is. Arcs and circles can be a little tricky sometimes. So what I like to do is I actually grab this tool right here, which is kind of a labeling tool. And I'm going to label with circle. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to kind of drag it up into an open space. So I clicked once on the circle and I clicked right there. And then I can click a third time if I need to kind of give it exactly where I want it to be. And what I'm going to say there is DIA, which stands for diameter, of 2, and my label was inches. So 2 inches. Easy enough, right? So now the circle is labeled. As far as this arc goes, do I have to tell what this radius is here? Not really. I've already said that it's 6 inches wide, so that should be inferred that that's what that arc is from side to side 6 inches. If you want to label it, we could go and click on it, and I'm going to kind of get it right above where I was. But this time all I do is hit R, because it's going to stand for radius. And so half of 6 inches is 3. And if I want to stay true to what I was doing, I probably should do 3.0. So let's go ahead and change this one. So I go up here and get the arrow tool, double click that, and now it's going to let me edit it. So I can go in there and hit 0.0, enter. Oops, I don't want to hit enter. And then just click out of that. So now my diameter of the inner circle is 2, my radius of this arc is 3, and I'm going to continue with a few more labels here. And all I want to say here is R 1.0, letting you know that's what that kind of fillet radius is there. We can label this one up here. Again, some of this is a little bit repetitive. These arcs, that is, because we've already given the widths of all these things. So this radius would be 4.0 inches. I'm so sorry. Those are in there. And that also made me realize that, over here it's given, over there it's given. That's okay. I wouldn't put the 8 here, for example. If you did something like this. Now you're being repetitive. The 8's already here, and here, and here. That's just too much. So I'm going to hit Control Z and take that away so that that's not in there anymore. So we're doing pretty good. I think the only things that we have to add are to help us out with our oval here. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the dimensions for the center points. So I'm going to zoom in real close. I got those so that I can kind of take that up. And the reason I'm going up with this one is that it's already busy down here. So I'm going to say that. And that's really enough as far as that goes. What I do want to do then is I also want to go from that same point and tell people where it's located. So that center line, that center point right there, is 8 inches from the back. So that's why we have that. And then all we're going to do is go back to our labeling tool. I only have to label one of these, not both. I'm going to hit R, and that's also a 1.0 inch radius. And so now they know what size that is. That's automatically going to tell them what this is. We may want to tell them that it's centered, and so I could do that by going back in here. Try to get right on the center point. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah, that's all right. Right in the middle there. I want to take it that way. So we're causing a few problems there by taking it this way. So let's take it up here and just have it kind of off to the side back here. See, that's not a bad way to do it, but then your line, your leader line, right here is only stopping right there. So let's go ahead and leave that right there, and we'll take it out this way. And then what we're going to do is go back to our arrow, and we'll move this radius thing. So all I do is bring it down this way, see if I can move it there. They're pretty nice to be able to move those. So now I have things that aren't overlapping each other too bad. That's really all we need for this drawing. So remember, your rules are that you have to have every dimension that would be necessary to build it. You know, you want to tell where locations of things are, you want to tell what size things are, all that type of stuff. But you want to avoid at all costs being repetitive. My last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my text tool. I'm going to draw a text window. And I'll put my name. You'd put your name, obviously, hopefully. And then I'm going to put figure 1.10. And let's call this dimensioning example. If you want to put more stuff in there, if you want to put the date, that's totally up to you. So we'll call that good. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to bring out text style. I'm at 10 point. Let's make it 18. 16. Bold. Easy to read. Mr. Grady won't miss it. Make sure he gets what he needs out of that. So there we go. As far as turning things in goes, we can go up here. You can save your layouts if you want. If you feel like, hey, I didn't do these dimensions very good, I may have to go back and change them. You may want to save the layout as well, so you don't have to start over. You can do that. If you want to print it from that same file tab, you can go down to print. And then also an option that we're going to be using later on is this export. So if I want to turn this in digitally, exactly what you see on this screen, this paper that I created, I can export as a PDF, as an image, which is a JPEG, things like that. So you have all these options as well. For me today, I'd probably just print it since that's what I'm going to be asking you guys to do. All right, and that is it.